Hi there everybody, today we're going to look at frequency density and histograms. So they are pretty interchangeable in terms of the words. You might say a frequency density diagram or a histogram, but essentially they're the same thing. But to draw a histogram you need to be able to calculate the frequency density. Now frequency density is the bit that goes on the left hand side of the graph. So rather than frequency, we don't put on the left hand graph, so it's not that type of graph, it's not bar chart or anything like that. It's a frequency density, all right? So that matters in terms of the class width, how wide that class width is. So unlike a bar chart, your bars will be different widths, all right? So that's the kind of key thing. So keep your eye out very, very carefully to know, especially if you're doing the higher GCSE paper, if it's a histogram, it is more likely to be a histogram in the higher paper than it is a bar chart, okay? So the frequency density is given as the frequency divided by the class width. All right, so let's put that into kind of context in terms of what we're going to do. So you might be asked to kind of basically complete a table. All right, so keeping that in mind at the top, we're trying to figure out how we work out the frequency density. So I'm looking very much here, this first kind of question here. So what frequency here, and then what is the class width? Well, the class width here is 5. So I'm going to do 10 divided by 5, and that's going to give me my frequency density. Okay, so I'll write that down over here. 10 divided by 5 is going to give me 2. All right, so that's my frequency density. And then from there, it's going to be the same kind of idea. So it's going to be 17 divided by the class width, which is 10. So 17 divided by 10, and it's going to be 1.7. And then the next one, well, if I think about this very carefully, I've got the frequency density and I've got the class width. So I've got these two. So that times that will give me the frequency. Okay, so that times that will give you the frequency. So the class width is 2. And the frequency density is 1.5. So 1.5 times 2 is going to give me this number here, which is going to be 3. And then over here, well, it's going to be the same as the first couple of ones. So the gap here is 13. So 28 divided by 13 is going to be 2.154. And then what we did last time, we did 0.4 times by the gap, which is 20. So 20 times 0.4 is going to give us 8. All right. So there we go. That's kind of filled in the table. So frequency density, say it one more time, is the frequency divided by the class width. All right, and we're going to use that a little bit further down the line. And more specifically, this bit over here, the frequency is the frequency density times class width. All right, we did that with the basically these two. Okay, so we did frequency density times the class width, and that gave us the frequency. All right, that will make a lot more sense when we look at the histogram itself. Okay, so let's have a look at drawing a histogram, basically from that kind of data. All right, so first things first, the area of the bars themselves, the area of all the little boxes you can draw, represent the actual numbers. All right, so that is really important. So the bigger the box, the bigger the frequency. All right, it doesn't matter what shape, in terms of, it's going to be a rectangle, but it doesn't matter if it's tall or wide or so tall and wide or small and thin. The area itself represents the frequency. So if you've got the bigger the box, the bigger the frequency, even though it might be spread over a bigger range. All right. So let's have a look. So the bars are the same width as the class, so which I've just kind of mentioned, but the classes can vary. Okay. We must label the y-axis frequency density. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. Hopefully I didn't. If I didn't, then yeah, it's not like a bar chart. It's not the frequency on the left-hand side. It's frequency density on the left-hand side, because like I said, it's the area that represents the frequency, not the height. Okay, so let's have a look. All right, so first things first, let's have a look at the data again, just to kind of remind what we had. So you can see you've got 0 to 10, which is a gap of 10, 10 to 30, a gap of 20, 30 to 45 was a gap of 15, 45 to 75, which is a gap of 30, and 75 to 100, which is a gap of 25. So you can see that the gaps between these are all very different, right? They're all different. And therefore, if you were to draw a bar chart, it would misrepresent what you've currently got, because the spread of data is different in every single gap, okay? So we're going to use frequency density. So we're going to need another column to work out the frequency density, all right? So I don't know if you can remember from the last lesson how we work out the frequency density. Well, it's the frequency divided by the class width, all right? So frequency divided by the class width, all right? So it's going to be 5 divided by 10 for this one, which is 0.5. This one here is going to be 24 divided by 20, because that's the gap, which is 1.2. Here we're going to do 33 divided by 15, which is going to be 2.2, and then 18 divided by 30, that's the class width there, it's going to be 0.6, and then finally 6 divided by 25, which is going to be 0.24. So these values here, over here, these are the heights of your histogram. Okay, right. So let's kind of put some numbers onto the axis. So along the bottom, we've got age, and it tends to be, this is your variable. Okay, so 0 to 100. All right, so on the bottom, and then the frequency density. All right, so not frequency density is going to go up here. All right, so I only need to go to around about 2.5. All right, so there we go. So 0, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 7, and so on, all the way up to the top. Okay, and we are now going to construct, like I said, a histogram, not a bar chart, a histogram. So all our heights will be different, and all our widths will be different based on the information we've got here and here. Okay, so between 0 and 10, so this bit here goes to 0.5. So I'm going to draw a box there up to 0.5. All right, there we go. So between 0 and 10 goes up to 0.5. So if I did 10 times 0.5, the area would be 5, and that's what I mentioned before. So that the area of the box is the frequency. Okay. The next one, so between 10 and 30, so around about there to there, we're going to go up to 1.2. So it's going to go roughly around about there. Okay, so let's have a look. Well, that's not quite right there, is it? That should go to there, shouldn't it? I hope you agree. It should be there, shouldn't it? Yeah, it says 1.2. Who makes these things? Right, 1.2 should be there. Okay, we need to get that changed. There you go. So that goes to 1.2. The next one goes from 30 to 45, from the gap we had, to 45, all the way up to 2.2. Yeah, that one looks right this time around, so 2.2. And then next of all, you've got 45 to 75, which is 0.6, so 45 to 75, so here to 0.6, so I'm expecting it to be there. There we go. And then 75 to 100, which is 0.25, so that's the remaining, so 75 to 100, and it's going to go to a height of 0.24. Well, that's 0.2, so I reckon it's about there. There you go. Okay. Right, so not too bad. Obviously, there's a mistake here. This only goes up to 1, and it should be 1.2. But you get the idea. Obviously, the idea is these boxes are different widths, and the area themselves represent the frequency. All right, so that's how we go about drawing a histogram. Okay, let's have another look about one more, just so that we kind of can complete, because you might be given a partial diagram and a partial table. So to combine two things together to see if you can work backwards and forwards with the information you've currently got. All right, so that's what this one is all about, because I often see this in an exam. Okay, so you need to be able to calculate the scale, you need to be able to calculate the information that's missing, and then put it all together. All right, so let's have a look. All right, so here we go. So we've got half a table, and we've got half a graph, and we've got no scale. All right, so let's try and think about what we can match together, and if we can figure out, I mean, the scale is probably the most important part at this point, because without the scale, then I'm going to struggle. All right, so is there anything in here and here in here that match? Well, if I look at 0 to 10, nope, don't have that. 10 to 25, oh, I do have that. All right, so this, between 10 and 25, is my area needs to be 24. All right, it tells me there the frequency is 24, doesn't it? All right, so that means my height of this must be 24. Agreed? All right, so how do I work out, therefore, the height of this? All right, because what I would do is normally is this divided by this. So that's what I'm going to have to do. So I'm going to do 24. So let's get another column in here. 24 divided by 15. All right, so that's going to be my first step. 24 divided by 15, and that's going to give me a height of this one. So that's going to give me 1.6. So because that's 1.6, I'm now trying to figure out what the other numbers down here need to be. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1.6 divided by 4, it's going to give me 0.4. So these must go up in 0.4s. Okay, so there's 1.6. And there it says the bar is 4 boxes high, so it must be worth 0.4. Okay, so there we go. Let's put some in. All right, so we just put 0.8, 2.4, so we skip the ones in the middle. All right, But there's your y-axis. And of course, let's not forget, it needs to be labelled frequency density. Okay? Right, so we're into it now. All right, we've got a scale on the left-hand side, and we've now got some other information to help us kind of move forward. All right, so let's have a look. So remembering the area represents the frequency. So I should be able to work out this one here, shouldn't I? All right, because that height there is 3.6, and the gap there is 5. So 3.6 times 5 is going to give me the area of that one. All right, but we're not doing that one just yet. We want to do this one first. All right, so we'll come back to that one in a second. We're going to do 12 divided by 10. So that divided by that is going to give me the frequency density of this one, which is going to be 1.2. So that's going to give me a box going like that. Now we can do the one I was talking about. All right, so what I was saying is it's 3.6 divided by, 3.6 times by 5 gives me this area, doesn't it? So 3.6 times by 5 will give you that number there, which gives me 18. And then we've got this one. So I've got 15 divided by 15, which is going to give me 1. So I've got a height of 1, and that's going to be between 30 and 45. So one is about there, about that height there. And there you go. All right, so that kind of fills that one. And then the 45 to 50, well, it's just a case of filling these in. So I've got a gap of 5, and it looks like it goes up to 2.2. So there's 2.2, and times that by 5, that's going to give me 11. All right, so now I've got everything kind of filled in. So it's very much about looking at each part of information and seeing what you can glean from it. Okay, so by all means, please do go away and practice. Go to maths-school.co.uk and get some consolidation done on that. All right, normally worth quite a few marks in the exam as well. It seems to be quite popular, and certainly in the higher paper for those who are going for the top grades. All right, but thanks for listening.